Hey everybody, Dave Floss here with Mentally Unbalanced and Prometheus Falling Toys, and today we're going to talk about the Ark. No, not that one. This one. So stick around. Hey everybody, Dave Floss here with Prometheus Falling Toys and Mentally Unbalanced. And as I said, today I'm going to talk about the Ark from Transformers, the most recent release in the it's a Kingdom release, the Kingdom line of Transformers, but I like to refer to it as one of the Titans, one of these massive, epic scale Hasbro toys that's been released. And it's hard to believe. In fact, when I looked it up, I almost didn't believe it myself, but the real first release in the Titan line was the Titans Return Metroplex, which, hard to believe, came out in 2013. It is 8 years old. And since then, we've had a number of really cool and epic large Titan-sized figures. We've had Fortress Maximus. We've had Trypticon, Omega Supreme, Scorponok. All just pretty impressive from sheer size and scale. And today we're going to talk about the most recent release, which is the Autobot ship that took Optimus Prime and the Autobots from Cybertron to Earth. Whether it's in the comics, it's been referenced, in the television show, it's been referenced, and here we have now the Kingdom release of the Ark. So let's take a moment and kind of just unpack what's included, what's in the box. So there's a lot of various interesting things besides the Ark itself. So you can see in the images here, we have the Ark, the ship itself, we have Teletran 1, the computer system inside the Ark. Within Teletran, there are a number of other little accessories. I can show off one here, which is the little satellite that goes searching in the first episode in 1984, the animated series, to find the vehicle modes that it would eventually repair and restore the Decepticon stowaways and the Autobots. There's two. I'll throw some pictures up as well down in the corner over here, which will show you some of the other accessories. One of the things that's included, which is interesting, is one of these super duper micro figurines, these tiny little figurines which have almost no detail to them at all. And this one includes Optimus Prime. And it's meant to be like a scaled figure in comparison to the sheer size of the Ark. A couple of these came with Unicron. The big HasLab Unicron as well. And while they're cute, they're whatever. Now, let's get into a little bit of the details of the Ark. So first, when we just kind of take a look at the outside, right? And I'll slowly kind of turn this around to give you an idea of some of the details of the Ark. Overall, I think it's a pretty good mold. Like anything else, there's going to be pros and cons, especially considering that this Ark is not just a ship, it is a transformer. It has a robot mode. So while they have to integrate all of those transformable joints and everything else, sometimes that takes away from the alt mode aesthetic. And whereas when you look at it from, kind of a front angle view or a top angle view, I think it looks really solid. It looks really good. You start to turn it around and you realize, well, there's a couple other areas which are kind of obvious that they're just made for the fact that it's able to transform, right? We go around to the back here. There's a couple fun features here. There's some really cool work done on the back engines. The back profile is really good. It's got a little drop-down doors, ramp, which adds a little bit to the playability. And then as we kind of finish turning it around here, we'll get a nice view just up at the front there. So let's go to a larger view of that. So here we can kind of get a good idea of the scale, and we'll just move that around just a little bit so we can get a good view of that. In fact, you know what I'll do? I'll move me. I think it's time for me to move so that I'm not blocking everything that's going on. So again, we get a look at kind of just the overall aesthetic. I think there's some really cool details in the alt mode, the canopy, cockpit area of it. The inside, you can fit Teletran 1 when he's transformed. Not really transformed, he's in like collapse down mode. On the flip side, I love all the little turrets, all the little details. I will say, at $160 retail, it would have been nice if some of those turrets were movable, mobile, posable. You'll kind of see this as well in the alt mode when we display that as well. But overall, it's nice. Now let's take a look at Teletran 1. So first thing is, Teletran 1 is exactly that. Teletran 1, the computer system inside of the Ark. And in its alt mode, that's exactly what it is. And I think, again, it kind of captures the essence and spirit of what Teletran 1 looked like. But ultimately, does it really go? Do I display it with the Ark? Not so much. The Ark really stands alone as its own epic size. And for me personally, and you'll see in a moment when I display it in alt mode, in robot mode, I much prefer the alt mode. That is where I think this toy ultimately kind of shines. I'm not nearly as impressed with the robot mode. Similarly, Teletran 1 has a robot mode. We'll show that off in just a moment. And again, I'm not overly impressed with the robot mode. I actually prefer the alt mode, and I use it to display with some of my other figures. All right, so now we get to see each of the figures in their robot mode. Let's start with Teletran 1. There's really nothing going on with this Teletran 1. It's extremely plain. There's a lot of kibble. The transformation is it's all right. The face sculpt, I mean, to me, there's nothing jumping out that makes this really cool and interesting in its robot mode. I much prefer the alt mode. At least that looks like Teletran 1 and is a cool accessory prop. But as a robot, doesn't really do much for me. Now, if we switch now to the Ark, it's got a couple nice things going on. I like the face sculpt. It reminds me very much of Vector Sigma, as portrayed in the comic books and the animated show. But the truth is, the transformation is not incredibly complex. As you do the transformation, there are pieces that have a tendency to pop right off. There's a couple pieces that have to pop off. For example, in robot mode, when you move it back to alt mode, ship mode, there are panels that need to be attached to close up some of the gaps. There are side panels that need to go on to give it that arc shape. And again, at $160, I'm kind of curious that they couldn't build it into the model or give it a bit of a cleaner look. If we kind of take a look at it from the side, let me turn this slowly here. We can also see that, again, very visible. A lot of the joints, very visible. We look at the inside, the way the chest connects, and it's really just kind of open underneath there. So looking at it straight on, it might look fairly decent. But as you start to turn it and look at the other angles, let's take a look at it from the back. Right, you can start to see that as well. I mean, they did close up at least decently the backs of the legs. Let's get you out of there for a second, Teletran. You can see kind of how they closed up the back of the legs. But again, you've got a lot of this extra overlapping material here. It's just not very clean. It doesn't look complete. It definitely, in my opinion, does not look nearly as good as it does in the alt mode. Will it work displayed next to your other Titan figures? Well, from a size perspective, of course it will. I think the challenge I'm going to have is when I look at the details of those other Titan scale figures, this does not really live up to that level of detail, especially in the robot mode. I'll give you one really good example. If we take a look at the hands, we can close them as an entire grouping here. We can move the thumb a little bit, but that's it. There's no individual finger motion. There's no ability to flick off the way I could with Metroplex or Fortress Maximus. I mean, it's clear that certain decisions were made to kind of pull, well, I should say, having no idea what the design process was, but it feels like there has been a pull back from some of the really high quality, high detail, and especially articulation that we found in some of the other Titan level figures. And really, we have a very big but fairly common type of Transformer, right? And I think that's the distinction there. Well, I like the Ark. That's my personal opinion. It's a great ship. It's going to go really well in the background with my Unicron and some of my other large-scale stuff. So I'm not personally disappointed, but if you're looking to get the level of detail and quality out of this Titan-scaled figure as we've had with some of the previous ones, I think you're going to be disappointed. And at $160, it's one of the most expensive Titan release figures to date because of some of the increase in the costs of this size of figure. But at the end of the day, you know, what is my opinion on the Ark and Teletran 1? Well, I've already told you everything you need to know about Teletran 1. He's never going to be displayed in robot mode because no one other than me will know who he is. And as far as the Ark is concerned, I like the way it looks as a ship. It's going to go well in my collection from that perspective. Did I need to spend $160, or do you, if you only want the ship? Maybe not. Maybe not. And again, I don't think anyone's going to be clamoring to have this necessarily strictly from a robot mode, which is pretty chunky and doesn't really look nearly as well defined as we've seen with the previous entries. So, of course, I'm welcome to my opinion, and you're welcome to yours. Do you disagree? Do you think it's the prize piece of your collection? Do you think I'm out of my mind and it's pure garbage? Whatever the case may be, go ahead and leave your feedback and comments. If you do us a huge favor and you like this video or our other videos, go ahead and click subscribe. The more subscribers we get, the more often we can bring you some great content. Until then, I'm Dave Floss with Prometheus Falling Toys and Mentally Unbalanced, and we'll talk to you soon.